All right, we've got a warm-ish day. I think it's supposed to be just above freezing today, and then after day it's supposed to drop back down into the 20s for a while. But while it's relatively decent to work outside, we have to go get a combine, and I'm reluctant to call it a rescue because there's not a whole lot left to rescue, so we're gonna call it a salvage. Gotta go get that 545 from my uncle's, and basically what's gonna become of it is I'm gonna bring it home. It won't be this winter because I'm not doing it in the snow, but get it drug home and get all the, I can't even say all, get what's left of the good parts off of it, because there's not a whole lot left, and scrap the rest. Which we can talk more about it when we get there, or when it gets here. But with that being said, first thing we got to do is do a little tractor archaeology and dig the 150 out of the corner back here because I need it. And so we got to get her out, go to mom and dad's, grab the forks, the 3-point forks, come back here, grab a set of spare combine tires that I got from my uncle during all this fiasco. And then hopefully dad's around to give me a hand for a little bit. I take the tractor and my pickup over there with tools, and I'm hoping this thing will pick up the front axle and get it off the ground enough to swap wheels and tires out, because the tires are on it. One holds air, but I don't trust it, and the other one just flat out won't hold air. So get these spare tires put on it so it'll roll, and then get around from behind it, pick the rear axle up, chain it, and just drag it over here. Hopefully it rolls, hopefully the brakes aren't locked up, but anyhow, first things first, we need my 66 so that I can move the grain cart out from behind the 87. Oh. Okay, we'll give you some choke. This thing hasn't, yeah, it's gonna need a little bit of oil. She hasn't moved in a hot minute. Okay, we'll give you some manifold heater. Everybody get started today. Oh hey, I forgot that was in here. That needs thrown away. Probably, at least for the time being, even though it's not clean yet, weasel this thing back up in the corner where it normally sits, because combines now aren't going to get cleaned up until we get some warm days. Although I will probably try to at least blow some more of the corn off of this thing so that it doesn't attract rodents. Okay, you get a start? Say no, I'm gonna be difficult. Alright, 87's running. I ended up letting it sit for a minute, let the manifold cool back off, and I gave her a snort of ether and she fired up. I'm gonna have to pull the manifold heater apart on that thing and see if it's actually doing anything, because I don't think it is. And if it is, I don't think it's working right, because it shouldn't start that hard. Hopefully this old girl wants to cooperate. She ain't been started in like 2 months. Come on, girl. There we go. That's my little shitty kitty. Alright, everything else is warm enough to start moving out, so we'll start digging. Alright. Pretty sure I put this in here with the drill sitting right where it's at, so. How, you ask? I'm sitting here trying to figure that out, but I'm pretty sure I did. Like that. Ta-da. Dirty sitting there in that corner. Alright. We'll tell Shelly I'm leaving and we'll go grab the pallet forks. Pallet forks acquired. Now we gotta go back to my house and grab the spare tires. Okay, now I gotta grab my tires. These came from my uncle's. These are a matched pair of probably 45-50% Firestone 18434 Field and Roads that I got to put on that Super 88/88 hybrid that I got from him. These are the new, I'm not really gonna, these two tires aren't terrible. I think it's these two. It's either these two or these two. One pair of these is actually some decent tires. The other pair is shot, but I bought these for the rims. There's Oliver Combine rims in those that will fit on the grain cart to get a matching set of rims on there. That are actually made for 23-126s, so they'll fit right. So those are the new rims for the cart, and then I'm going to keep 2 of the tires, and the other 2 I might try to sell or get rid of or whatever. These I got from my uncle. These are the ones that we're after. It's a matched pair of Goodyear power grips. Kind of an odd size. They're a, what were these? A 16/9/28. They were a real bastard size. But these are actually some pretty decent tires. The sidewalls are got a little bit of checking in them, but the tread on them is great. But they'll do what we need to do, so I just got to flop them on the forks and get them up to the house so I can check the air in them. Cause I don't know if they got any air or not. All right, we're ready to go. I'm just waiting on Dad to get here because he's going to take my truck. Tires got air in them. I got about 20 pounds on them. Hopefully this one makes it. It's got a goofy, really goofy water valve. I mean, I've seen them before, but it's a goofy water valve. Normally they're internal threaded and you just thread the water valve into the stem. This one's external threaded and it's got a nut crimped onto the water valve, and the nut's got a split in it. Luckily everything holds, so I threw a zip tire on it to close the nut back up around the threads, and all it's got to do is keep it from shooting out with air pressure, and hopefully, I mean, it's only got to make it 2.5 miles or whatever it is from here to my uncle's. So, and I lied, they're not Goodyears, they're BFGs, Silvertowns, but they're actually really nice tires, other than a little sidewall checking. So hopefully they do what we need to do. I got chainsaws. There's a couple trees. I got small trees I got to cut down. I got all my power tools, impact, socket set. I'm hoping it rolls. I don't know while we got the tires off if I try knocking the couplers off the final drive so I'm not fighting brakes. We'll see how stuck they are. So other than that, we're ready to rock and roll. Just waiting on Dad to get here. All right. As you can see, there ain't a whole lot left of the old girl. We got to cut these trees out, cut that tree out. I think that's about it. And it's just gonna be a matter of swapping tires and hoping it moves. Got the trees pulled away. We had to pull the cylinders, or the lift cylinders off the front to get them out of the way, which was easier than I thought it'd be. The pins were surprisingly not really stuck. We've got 7 lugs off of each side, so the tires are pretty much loose. Now it's just going to be a matter of if this old girl will pick the front of it up or if we're going to have to go get one of our railroad jacks. Adjustment here, get more lift. talk more about the story a little bit once the work is done here. Okay, moment of truth. Oh, that he's saying forward. Real neat if I didn't have to go get railroad jacks. Nope, that's what she's got. Well, damn. It's worth a shot. I think part of the problem is that that flat tire is probably froze to the ground. So we'd have to overcome that. Get a railroad jack. Talk on it. Okay, wheels are swapped. We gotta get the auger off because it's gonna be too far back behind the machine. So we should take note of the rear fold auger. We'll talk about that later. You want to grab me the grinder and the cutoff wheel? It's pinned right there. This might not be a good place to stand. I might end up in the combine. pin is naturally the sleeve, so it's not coming out, so we're gonna just have to cut that. Alright, we'll see what we can do here. Might have to slide the forks together. Should be able to pick the rear end of this thing up. I picked the back of a 525 up with the 1955 before. So we're not really worried about saving a whole lot here. We want the rear hood up a little bit, so be it. There's not really anything there to save. Right now we're just trying to get it pulled, pointed out towards the field so that we're not under trees trying to hook it up to it. But everything on the virtually everything on the inside of this machine is shot. The walkers are all rusted out from being full of garbage. The sieves, there's basically nothing inside the machine that's salvageable. Chopper mounts on it are all rusted out where they rolled the bottom edge to reinforce them, so even those things are, I mean, I suppose you could probably do something to fix those if you really needed a pair. as you drive on by. Safely made it to the road. So from this point, about about 2.5 miles ish. All right, about to negotiate our first turn. Still back there. No cars coming, so I'm not even gonna bother stopping. Good dealio. The highway, Oliver Blockman, that hadn't had his name on the patent for the fender tanks, used to live in that house right there. His name was Lloyd Lewis. Dad knew him before he passed away. The Oliver running gear, the grain table for the 525 setting on, came from his auction. Had a little fully restored Oliver 550 that he mowed his yard with, and he had a little row crop 66 narrow front with cast rear wheels, but unfortunately they both sold before the auction, so we never even got a chance at those. But we got the running gear anyhow. Alright, now for the fun part, negotiating this turn. This is going to be, but if it falls off the forks here, it's not a super huge deal. And we're going to grab a shorter gear. Down to third. There behind the telephone poles, so that at least can't talk, so that it is at least out of the way, is what I'm trying to say. At her temporary resting place. them out there, grab the auger. That stuff can come back here for now, and that'll be the end of this project for the time being. Alright, I just got back, got the barn put back together. 87's back up in its corner for the time being. I don't like having, I hate putting the combines away dirty like this, but it just, in the weather like this, unless you have a warm place to pull them in to clean them up real good after you get done washing them, the dirt just freezes to them, and the water freezes to them, and then that dirt stays stuck to them, and it just, even with a hot washer, it just doesn't work. I've done it before with 525, and it just didn't work. So first stretch of warm weather we have, warmish weather we have, that's gonna be project numero uno, is get the combines cleaned up so they can get put away for good. But anyhow, I was looking at how everything sat in here, and I'll have to do some measuring, but it'd be really close if the duals weren't on old Stumpy here. He'd probably dang near back Eleanor in and park the T and the 55 on either side of the nose, and I bet everything would fit in here. It'd be tight, but it'd be close. But it's going to depend on how long the 270 is. But it's something I might look into for the time. Of course, it's kind of a moot point because here after the first year, 150's going over to Mom and Dad's and going down and take the duals off, put it in the barn over there so we can do the 3-point, or do the power takeoff. Don't tell me that door's froze. Do the power takeoff and the clutch, and which at that point I could just bring Eleanor over here, just park her, and everything would fit. And then once the 150's done, which hopefully won't take very long, for the most part it's all plug and play stuff. Then Eleanor's got to go back over there and take the duals off, put her in the barn, and take the fuel tank off. Fix a couple small hydraulic leaks back there on top of the rear transmission, and get the 3-point to work. So I guess trying to get it all over here in the meantime is just kind of a little bit of a waste. And who knows, if the weather gets right, we don't get a whole lot more snow, might even be able to go do a little bit of chisel plowing yet, maybe. But anyhow, let's go down here and talk about this combine. It's a crying shame because there's really not a whole lot of 545s left. Eventually, one of these days, my goal in life, well, if I do my whole goal in life is to have at least one model of every combine, from a number 2 Grainmaster all the way up to at least like the 8600 to 8800, at least that set. But I'm gonna need a barn about 3 times that size just to fill full of combines if I want to fulfill that goal. But at the very least, I would at least like to have 525, 535, 545. If I could have those 3 as working machines before I die, I would consider that a mission accomplished. But like I say, it's a crying shame about this one, because when my uncle bought it, this would have been right around somewhere 89, 90, 91, somewhere in there, because I think that's about when he bought that farm where we were just at. Came from a farm in Rolling Prairie, Indiana, which means it was probably sold new out of the Oliver dealer in LaPorte. And I don't know the name of that dealer, but I know a guy that might. So it's a local combine. It never really has been too far from home. And Dad said when he bought this thing, it was in as good or better shape than my 525. The paint on it still shined. Dad said it was a really nice machine. And I mean, at that point, it would have been 20-something odd years old, because it's got to be like a 68 to a 71. Unfortunately, I don't have any sort of serial number list to be able to look up to exactly what year it is, but it's got to be a later one by the options that are on it. And unfortunately, from the minute Granddad owned it, or not from the minute my Uncle Bobby owned it on, it has not been in a barn since, and this is the result. I vaguely remember, because my uncle used to farm the 2 fields that I farm now, Grandma and Grandpa's, over by Mom and Dad's house. And I vaguely remember, and I think it's the only time I remember seeing this machine run. He was, I don't even remember if it's corn or beans. Either way, I remember him in the field directly in front of Grandma and Grandpa's house. The 4-acre piece, which would have been set at that time off by itself before we took the fence line out and closed the ditch in and everything. He was up there and something on it broke, and I remember going down there with Dad helping him fix it. But that's the only time I remember seeing this combine running. I might have seen it more than that, but that's the only time that I could actually remember seeing it in the field. And then I wasn't very old when he quit using this and got that Gleaner, or got that F2. And then he didn't use that very long, and then he ended up with that M or M2, whatever the one is there with the 6-row head on it. So I don't really remember this thing running very much. And by the time I was old enough, it was pretty ragged out. Or by the time I was old enough to remember, it was pretty ragged out already. It's been on fire. He caught it on fire twice. I think the last fire was the one that did it in. But if I remember right, it was engine compartment fires both times, which on these, that's really the only spot that can catch on fire. And for the longest time, it sat up back, if everybody remembers, up where the barn was before that it got raised to the ground here this summer. It sat up behind the barn, in between the barn and the field. It sat there for forever. And then at some point, it got moved back to where it was sitting just now. And it was there. It's been back there in that tree line at least since I had my 525, because the rear wheels off of this are actually the ones that are on the 525 now, because when I took that, the 525 had 14 926s on the drives and 650 15s on the steers. And when I went up to the 18.4s on the drives, in order to level the machine back out, I had to put the 750 18s on the back. And this had 750 18s on it. So I robbed the rims off of this for the 525. And when we did that, it was sitting where it was when we just pulled it out of. So it's been there for at least, I don't know, I was 16 when I got that. I think I ran it for 2 years before I put the rice and canes on it, so it would have been 18. So it's been back there for at least 12 years, 13 years, and it was sitting back there before that. So it's been, it's been a while. It spent more of its life on that farm than it has at the farm it was originally sold to. And he had a 4-row, I remember it was a 4-row wide. I don't think it was a narrow, but he had a 4-row head for it. And he had a 15-foot grain table for it. And the heads were scrapped many, many moons ago. They were both junk. The head used to sit in the tree line. So if right now it's sitting in the tree line where it was, directly across the field at the other tree line where he had all of his junk parked in that tree line, the head sat directly across the field from it in that other tree line. The corn head did, and then the grain head, for some reason, sat down behind my grandma's house at the little 2-acre field for forever. And the table got scrapped first, and then the corn head got scrapped not too long after that. So it has no heads with it. But yeah, there's, as you can tell, there's just not a whole lot left of the poor old girl. Every elevator's rotted out. There's no bottom left in it. It's, the rear hood's all rusted. There's just, she's ready for her final destination. But it's like I say, it's a crying shame because it has some rare options on it. It's got the factory hopper extensions that make the hopper taller. It's got the rear fold auger, which was a very rare option. This is the only combine I've ever actually seen one on. Other than that, I've only ever seen them in pictures. That got you, I don't know what the dump height on it at that point, or on the unload height at that point would be, but it got it well above the grain tank height. But it rear fold, hooked here on this rear saddle, or whatever you want to call that. That cable I unhooked, and then there would have been another cable that hooked in that eyelet at the top for when it was out. So that cable would have went taut when you folded it back, and the one out here would have hooked, or would have went taut when you had it unfolded. So that would have been a pretty rare option. There's basically, it's already been patched once. And the long auger tube is that. So I'd like to at least get get the hinge, the drive, because this drive's completely separate. The lower, it actually has a carrier bearing in it, a different drive setup. It actually has dual drive fingers, over center cam latch to lock it. Why they didn't put this on the short augers too, I don't know, because that would have been a lot handier than the nut and the bolt. But I'd like to get all of the quote unquote hard pieces, anything that's not sheet metal. I'd like to get all of that stuff off of it, and maybe someday at some point try to basically use this one for a pattern to make a new one and put on the 7300, because it's the same auger setup as a 7300, and it should all work on the 7300, and that'd give me a taller unload height on it. Of course, by the time I probably get around to that, hopefully, maybe by some miracle, I'll have enough ground that I will have outgrown the 7300 for cutting beans, and at that point it'll probably be kind of a moot point and just be more of a toy. So that's kind of a rare option on this combine. And then the other rare option is these guys. This was kind of their first attempt at some sort of halfway quick attach. It's got the longer leads that come out to catch the head when you're driving into it, to make it easier to drive into the head. And then, unlike my 525, where you have the little saddle blocks here and the pin, and you have to have everything lined up just right or you can't get the pin in, which leads to some very colorful words if you come into the head a little crooked or something, and then you only get one pin to line up or whatever. On this one, you only have to get it close, and then you can, everything's stuck right now, but these would swing up. You run this nut out, you can get it close, and then you could throw an impact or something on it, run that nut in, and actually suck the head into the combine with that buckle, so that you don't have to have everything lined up perfect. And then the other half of this setup is in my truck. It's the cylinders. The cylinders are the same, but there was kind of a quick attach component of the hooking the cylinders up too, which I'll show you. We can walk up to my pickup. I still got to unload the truck. Again, I've only ever seen these on one other machine. My buddy Jake bought a late model 525 parts machine that had this set up on it. Actually, I think he ended up, did he end up with two pairs, or did he? Now, I think by the time I went down and saw him, he'd actually taken them off the combine. But yeah, I've only ever actually seen one other setup of these on a machine. They came out later in the production run, and you just didn't see that many of them, because I'm guessing it was an upcharge that a lot of guys probably weren't willing to pay for what it was. But the entire assembly right here is a lot heavier than what's on the 525, which this was, I hesitate to call it a weak point because you don't see them broke that often, but my 525 was just the cast saddle that only caught these 4 bolt holes right here, caused some stress points on this formed channel right here, and they would crack out right here at this bend and break. That's how my 525 was when we got it, and Dad ended up making some blocks that came back in here. We cut this channel out, welded block, or a big single piece block into this frame, reinforced this whole corner, and fix that. But these would eliminate that problem as well, because you have a lot more surface area to work off of. So like I say, these are a rare option as well. So as far as stuff I'm going to take off of it, final drives, although that final drive has got something going on in it. You can pull the hub and the axle in and out about a 1/2 inch, so something goofy going on in there. But other than that, the casting, everything appears to be okay, so probably just needs bearings thrown in it. I'm going to pull the final drives off of it. Obviously, that one's already been changed because it's off of a Moline. Final drives, transmission. I'll pull the cylinder bars out of it, because surprisingly, the cylinder bars, or at least the 2 that I can see so far, look damn near brand new. They haven't even started wearing into the bolt heads yet. Which, if nothing else, well, first off, if somebody needs a set of 545 bars, but if nothing else, I have to measure the hole spacing and see if because the 525 just got 3 stars in it, where this has 4. See if that hole spacing is the same on the 525, and see if all I need to do to make these bars fit the 525 is lob an end off, and then have a spare set of bars for the 525. Don't think they would fit in the 7300, because if I remember right, the 7300's got 4 stars in it, and the spacing is different. But if these are the same as the 525, and all I got to do is shorten them, not that I'll probably ever wear a set of because the 525's already got new bars in it. I put a set in it when I got it, because I got lucky and found a set that were brand new in a salvage yard. But that would get me a spare set of 525 bars for if some reason I ever needed them. So get all that stuff off of it, take the variable speed off of it. Like I say, take the lower half of the auger off of it, just to have for a pattern. I will probably at least pull the sieves out of it. This thing was sitting up on blocks, and then it fell. I think the sieves are junk, but I will pull them out to check. Like I say, the walkers are junk. It's not even worth trying. I pulled, well, the one that's missing, I pulled out to get cut patch panels out of to fix the broken one that was in the 525. However long ago it was that I put new walker bearings in it, and it needed had a broke walker. The walkers in this thing are junk. They're rusted out, rotted out. They're not worth it. The 2 perforated elevator doors are surprisingly in good shape, so those can come off. Well, I'll be damned. There's something alive in there. Oh. Anyhow, that tailings elevator tube is surprisingly not rusted out. At least on first inspection. Might be able to pull that off and use it to patch up the one on the 7300 that's got some pinholes in it. Pull the sprockets off of it, because those are worth saving. I wish the chopper was still with it, because it's got well, the front drive gear's gone for some reason. It's odd. It's got all the chopper drive parts on it, but it's also got, it's only got one chopper panel on it, and then it's got on this side the spreader panel, and the spreader drive stuff still there. So I don't know what's going on there, but I don't know where the chopper is. It wasn't at the farm anymore, so it might not have had a chopper on it when I don't know. I can't explain that one. But I wish it came with the chopper, because I could have sold somebody a basically complete chopper kit for a 545. Wonder what he cut that patch panel out of. Almost looks like the C off of a Coors sign. I don't think, I mean, if the engine is free, which I doubt, because it's a 318 Chrysler. I mean, if the engine's not stuck, the engine might be worth something to somebody. That light housing's in good shape. They hunted out of this thing for a while too. It used to be. Air cleaner doesn't appear to be rusted out. That might be worth robbing off of there. Yeah, this used to open. I've had it open before. There we go. I mean, the engine's fairly clean. The intake's been open to the elements. If it's not locked up, like I say, it might be worth pulling it out for somebody. I'm sure the radiator's fucked. But if nothing else, I'll pull the radiator out, scrap it separate, because it's probably copper. Probably pull all the hydraulic valves out of the dash. It's still got all the factory gauges in it, and they're in decent shape, at least outwardly appearing. Probably drop the power steering unit out of it, because it's the same Saginaw unit they used in the tractors. They just got to change the column out, and on the combines they used a different style of latch for your steering wheel position. So on these, where you would have, where's it at? Is it this boss? Somewhere in here there's some holes that should be drilled but aren't, to catch the pin in for the position catch in the tractors. But the guts in the combine units generally have not seen as many roundy rounds as the steering units in the tractors, because you don't put as many hours in a combine as you do a tractor. So if you got a Saginaw unit that is wandering a little bit, like they tend to do on the tractors, you can use a combine unit to repair it, because the parts are probably in better shape, in theory. This thing had automatic header height on it, apparently, because that's what this valve is. Kind of looks M&W robot-ish, but I don't see, not that I would put that on any of my stuff, but normally, at least on the M&W ones, there was an extension that came up here off of the header lever and added a second lever, and there was some different controls that you used for the automatic header height. But anyhow, I don't even think any of the the back windows look okay. That window's all chipped up. There's stuff growing in. How the hell does that work? That window's good. That window appears to be alright. Maybe take the cab glass out of it. That window's busted. But the cab is junk. Door's missing. So yeah, I don't know. There's parts on it, just not a whole lot. And then basically, once I get everything off of it that's worth taking off of it, as bad as it sounds, take the excavator, smash it down a little bit to get it under height, drag it up on the gooseneck, and away we go. I hate to do it, but there's just not a whole lot left there. Oh, I'm going to take the rear axle off of it too. I'm kind of surprised it's got the narrow rear axle. Because there was 2 widths of rear axles, and most 545s I've ever seen had the wide axle in it that put the tires out, or the rear tires out in the same track as the front tires. And this one's got the narrow axle like my 525, which is kind of odd. And I've also seen 525s with the wide rear axle, which is, I was hoping this one had the wide one and I'd put it on my 525. Just because it makes it, when you got to get in the mud and you're running the same wheel tracks, it makes it easier to steer. What is that? So that one does have a chip in it. The light housings do look halfway decent. At least the factory ones look halfway decent. So I'll probably pull lights off of it. The intake screen is junk. The intake screen shroud is junk. Yep, it's a shame. But unfortunately, when I love my uncle, but it frustrates me that farm is where stuff went to die. That's what happened. But anyhow, that's kind of the plan, and I'm not going to screw with it here yet this winter. I got other stuff going on, but it'll probably be a next summer project when the weather's nice. Hook onto it, drag it up to the backyard so it's easier to work on, and start cutting on it. Then I'll have to throw a wrench on it and see if it's stuck. It might surprise me, but I doubt it. But I will probably at least pull that engine and sell it to some kind of 318 Chrysler's a 318 Chrysler. It's got to be worth something to somebody, and it's the industrial one, which probably, I know like the 350 Chevys, the industrial and the heavy truck engines had 4-bolt mains in them. I don't know if Chrysler did anything to beef up the bottom end in the industrial 318s or not. But I guess I don't even know how sought after the 318 Chrysler is to people. I know they put them in everything. But maybe if there's any Dodge guys that watch, or Dodge Chrysler guys that watch this, they can tell me if that motor's worth anything to anybody, or if I should even screw with it. So anyhow, took a little longer to do that than what I wanted, but all in all, it was pretty uneventful, so can't ask for much more than that. So with that being said, that's another project down. So that's it for this one. We'll catch you guys on the next one.